Okay, you ready? Yep. All right. I'm going to talk to you guys about the Small Business Initiative and the Mid-Business Initiative for Construction, the Equal Employment Opportunity, and the Apprentice Utilization in the Bid Preference. These are all included in our bid packages for construction over $100,000. Okay? All right, so these are designed, the Small Business Initiative was put in place to encourage small businesses to participate in city-funded construction projects. The SBI was broken up into two small areas. One for project costs less than $3 million, that's the SBI 1. And for those projects that are less than $2 million, that's called SBI 2. So what it is that it allows the smaller business to get a bigger piece of the pie of the construction industry that the larger companies can't have any say-so in. Those companies that can bid this will have just exclusive rights in these programs. And what we've done recently, we've added the MBI, which I said the middle-sized business initiative. And what this is the same thing, but it's a little larger scale. So those project costs are from $3 to $10 million. And then we added in the last few months MBI 2, which is now at 10 to 20 million. So you see they're growing, but well, like I said, they're trying to give you or the small business an opportunity for more inclusion and allow those bigger companies to stay there. These will give those small businesses an opportunity to just exclusively bid these small projects. Now, of course, you as a vendor must be able to show your proof of that you are a small business, so you must show your gross receipts. When you bid it, you're just not automatically going to be given this opportunity. You're going to have to show the one that you're a small business, show your corporate structure, show all the information about your company. It has to get vetted, it has to get approved, and once you're approved in this program, then you're allowed to be, that'll be your project, you'll work on it, and you'll go through the award process, okay? So the next project I want to talk about is called Equal Employment Opportunities. Now, this, in essence, is an award criteria that we have on all construction projects over $100,000. And what it is that it allows you to utilize your minority and women journey workers, apprentices, and laborers on contracts. So we're saying, as a vendor, you want to notify us what type of a percentage are you going to set aside for those particular apprentices. And that's in our award criteria, and it's in all construction projects over $100,000. And that's our way of canvassing the bid. So the better percentages you give us on that award criteria, it lowers your bid, and it could potentially allow your bid to become the low bidder. So that's a very important process to know about. So, all right, and that's for all construction projects over $100,000. And the last piece I'm going to speak on is what we're calling the apprentice utilization. So this is another opportunity for you as the city in bidding, allows you to be an apprentice on a project. So a larger firm would set up an apprentice program, and then they will select, they say, okay, we're going to take on the firm A, and we're going to bring them along. So it also is an assistant to help small businesses, help them work through the ranks, show them how, almost taking them on as a partner to show them how we as a big company can bid these work and work on these projects successfully, and then they turn you in. And they in a sense, they get a almost like a 2% bid reduction too. So this allows them also to us to canvas their bid at a lower price because they're a part of this bid apprentice program. Okay. So these are the different things that we as the city of Chicago are currently doing right now. There are a number of other incentives, but this is more in the construction realm of what we're talking about today. So now I turn it over to the job order contracting, the Gordian Group, who will talk about their portion of the presentation.
And who are you?
Oh, my name is Gary Bell. I'm an assistant procurement officer with the city of Chicago. I manage the architecture, engineering, construction, commodities, and small orders. Okay, very good. Thank you. Hello.
that instead?
Sure.
I don't think this is working for some reason. Thank you.
If that works,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? What channel do I turn it on?
it's already on.
Can
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
You're not going to hear it like it's for it to be YouTube
Oh,
live
okay.
stream.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
all.
Well, yeah, I can just talk to that. Okay. Well, our part is we're part of the Gordian Group. We handle the job order contracting program, which is also called JOC. My name is Kahari Andrews, by the way. And how do I advance this? Okay, I got it. So we're going to be talking about the JOC program. We're going to go over an overview of the job order contracting program. We're going to go over bidding as a prime contractor. We're going to go through the JOC process, and then we're also going to go through the benefits of JOC to prime contractors and subcontractors. Lastly, we're going to go over key points from the discussion, and then the final piece will be an open discussion with you guys if you have any questions.
Is it going?
Not.
Alex may have it on.
Okay. So just an overview of the JOC program. JOC is a part of a family of indefinite quantity contracts. Some of these contracts are JOC, WOC, DOC, SABRE, IDIQ, and IQC. The federal government began using JOC in the mid-1980s as a delivery method for small to medium-sized construction work. The Gordian Group, which is our company, was established in 1990 for the purpose of implementing JOC for non-federal agencies such as the City of Chicago. Today, there are 2,000 job order contracts in use nationwide with over 1.8 billion of construction ordered annually. In 2005, the National Institute of Government Purchasing, NIGP, awarded the Best of the Best award to the City of Miami Beach for their implementation of a JOC program and the subsequent efficiencies that came out of having a JOC program. In 2015, Cook County received a National Association of Counties award for their use of job order contracting. Yeah, please. I don't know, can you see it? You can?
Barely.
Okay.
But we're fine.
Okay. Well, like I said before, JOC is the delivery method for the city to secure construction services. It's one of the methods. The four methods you see at the top, in-house trades, traditional bids, term agreements are probably some of the methods you're probably familiar with. JOC is one of these. JOC is not meant to replace any of these other methods. It's just another method for the city to procure work. And again, it's for small to medium tasks, as we saw on that previous slide. In the middle, we're going to go over this later on in the presentation. You'll see this is basically the JOC process. It starts with identifying a project, joint scope meeting of the project, contractor preparing the proposal, but that's just a, oh, no problem. Oh, you can go to the next one. That's just a brief synopsis of how the JOC program works, but we'll go into that further in the presentation. So again, the JOC program. JOC order contracts are firm fixed price, competitively bid, indefinite quantity delivery methods designed to produce large number of multi-traded repair and rehabilitation projects, as well as minor new construction projects quickly. It's an efficient way for the city to get these projects done in an efficient manner. The JOC program uses all the tasks are based on firm fixed prices. All these prices are already preset, and they are listed in the construction task catalog of pre-priced work tasks. It's also called the CTC. That'll be referenced later on in the presentation as well. The JOC program is competitively bid. All bidders for the program must submit a set of adjustment factors to the fixed prices in the CTC catalog. And the JOC program is of indefinite quantity. No projects are identified at the time of bidding. So as a prime contractor or subcontractor, you don't have any idea about what projects you're getting. You just know that you will be getting projects during the term of that contract. Once the master umbrella, oh, okay, thank you. Once the master umbrella contract is awarded, job orders are issued for the individual projects, potentially up to the maximum value of the contract. So again, once that contract is awarded, you're going to get so many projects as a prime contractor up until the maximum value of whatever that contract is. So going into who benefits, you have two players, prime contractors and subcontractors. The prime contractors bid on the umbrella contract. The owner, one of the, like we said, this is for the city of Chicago, one of the departments of the city of Chicago who would be the owner, they advertise the JOC contract. The prime contractors bid on that contract, and then the owner awards the contract to that prime contractor. Then on the next level, you have the subcontractors who basically have opportunities with that prime contractor to secure work with the prime contractor. You can have, again, 3 owners, and those are opportunities for the subcontractor to work with them. Bidding as a subcontractor. In the bid is made up of 5 books. The first book lists instructions to bidders, and also includes execution documents of the contract. The second book lists general conditions and JOC special conditions. The third book is that CTC catalog we spoke about. And the fourth book includes technical specifications, and the fifth book are the particular client specifications. Any particular client might have specifications that they want to include in the book that is specific to their construction discipline. So you might have Department of Water. They might have certain items in that book that are specific to job orders that pertain to their department. The same with Department of Aviation and so forth. The CTC catalog is something we've mentioned a couple times. This is an illustration of what it looks like. It's a catalog of pre-priced construction tasks, and it's organized by the CSI master format, which is a database of construction data that is compiled for this catalog. The prices, each task in the CTC has a price. It has a price attached to it, and that price is made up of LEM, labor, equipment, and material. So if you have a task for a roof, if you have an installed window, that price that is listed next to installed window takes into account the labor to install the window, the material of the window, and whatever equipment is tied to installing that window. And again, these tasks are customized for each department's, each particular city's tasking standards. Again, I'll use the example of Department of Water. Their tasks are going to be different from, not vastly different, but somewhat different from other departments. Book 4 is technical specifications. So each task item we just spoke about has a technical spec that is tied to each task. So under the example we just used as far as installing a window, under the technical spec that is attached to that line item, it'll list out in very, very detailed language what is involved in that task. So there's no confusion about, for a contractor or a prime contractor or the owner, what that task is going to entail and what you're expected to do. And that's a example of what the CTC looks like. So if you see at the top where it says section, I don't know if you can see it. That's part of the CTC. At the bottom, it will have the technical specification, and where you see description of work, that's where it goes into detail about what that exactly is. So bidding as a prime contractor, again, we have those two main players, the prime contractor and the subcontractor. But as a prime contractor, you will be doing the actual bidding on the contract. Right here we have listed out as 4 steps. The main step, well, the first step is determining the direct costs that fall into your bid. You want to analyze the CTC and the specifications. Your bid needs to be very complete and clear. You need to review the CTC price against direct costs for accomplishing the work. And it also says prices in the CTC do not include subcontractor overhead and price. So basically that means that when bidding, you need to take into account everything that you anticipate on all the costs, direct and indirect costs that you anticipate on incurring and doing the job that you're bidding on. So that involves looking at the CTC and the specifications and possibly taking one of your own jobs and saying, okay, let me price out the job I've already done and then spec this out on the CTC and then see how it comes out. There's a little bit of legwork that involves, but it helps you to it helps your bid to be a lot more clear, a lot clearer, and a lot more complete. Step 2, we advise that you determine your overhead costs and profit expectations. Those are 2 factors that are very specific to each contractor. Some contractors will have high overhead and profit expectations. Other contractors might not. So, but those are things that you need to be aware of and budget into the costs that as you spec out what your job is. It could be bonding and insurance, staffing, and what it will cost to employ the staff. Those are key elements of down the road during the contract, what you're going to have to, the costs you're going to have to incur during that time. Step 3, bid normal hours and other than normal hours factors to the prices quoted in the CTC. That's applied to all work tasks in the CTC. Must cover direct costs, overhead, and profit, and you cannot exclude any task. What that says is that, again, when pricing out the jobs that you're pretty much speculating, you want to bid normal hours and other than working normal hours because, again, you're trying to anticipate all of the possible scenarios that you might encounter during that contract. So, for instance, you just don't want to, if you had a job of, if you're pricing out a job of installing a roof, you want to price out that job for weekends, or you want to price out that job for after work, just so you have a clear range of what's the lowest and what's the highest cost that you might incur, and then build that into your bid. Step 4, specify EEO commitments and determine the award criteria figure. This basically says, as a prime contractor, that there are MB and WB commitments for every contract. You have to be aware of what those commitments are for the contract, and but again, that's spelled out in the contract. As you see, the bid forms will walk through. The bid forms in the contract will walk all bidders through the calculations, but those are 2 percentages that, as a prime contractor bidder, you need to be aware of because those are standard in each contract and have to be met. And then lastly, the most important statement, which is in large letters, is the low bidder is based on the lowest award criteria figure. So there's a balance of doing all the things we just talked about in terms of trying to build a accurate proposal based on what your expectations are as a contractor and what your budget goals are and what you need to do to meet all your financial expectations as a business, balanced with wanting to be the low bidder for the award. So that's a delicate balance in itself because those are two opposite goals, but that's a balance that each contractor has to manage, you know, when putting the bid in for the contract. Bidding as a prime contractor, the preferred method for analyzing the price in the CTC versus your cost. So this is basically what we talked about, what I just talked about earlier. You want to select a comparable project from your files. We used a roof earlier. In this example, it says you selected a project where you got paid $82,323, and you were happy with this $82,323. You were happy because you were able to pay your staff, you were able to make a profit, you had the job completed on time. Everything worked out. What you then want to do is you want to build that same proposal in the CTC with the factor of 1.00, which is no adjustment. 1.00 is the baseline. So we've been talking about adjustment factors a lot. The adjustment factor can be above 1.0 or it can be below 1.0, from 0.75 to 1.40. But 1.0 is the baseline from where you start. So if you built that same job at $82,323 out in the CTC and you came up with a final price of $75,746, then that would give you an adjustment factor. If you look at the last line, that would give you an adjustment factor of 1.0868. So what that's saying is that the previous amount that you got paid for that job, building that cost into the CTC based on all of the preset prices in that catalog, you're going to have to adjust that price up above 1.0 to meet all of the things we talked about, your direct costs, your overhead, and your profit, to stay at that same happy level of, you know, jobs and everything, all of your goals being met for each job. That's how you would have to adjust those prices up. And that could differ for a roof job or drywall job, what have you, but that's just an example of how you would spec out your regular jobs and how it would translate to the CTC. So we've been talking about bidding for the last 20 minutes, and 1.08 in this case would be your bid. So let's just say all of the examples, if you went to 5 comparable projects and you came up with 1.08 on all 5 projects, that's a pretty safe assumption that 1.08 is a good number for you in terms of bidding, maybe a little higher. So this is an example of, I'm sorry about that. This is an example of an Excel spreadsheet. You can't see it, but
they have it on the website, right? Can I go to DP?
No.
They should. So it should be uploaded on YouTube. Okay. If you reach out and change it, okay.
When you do see it, it lists the description, it lists quantity, the unit of measure. So one of the line items says CSI number 050. It says drywall, then it has square footage, and then it has the quantity, and then it has the unit price. So basically, you're picking one line item, multiplying it by the how many square feet you need, and then it's going to give you the unit price for each task. So we just went over trying to spec out each project. Like we just spoke about, you don't want to select just one project. You want to select more than one project. You also want to select projects of varying scope, depending on what your field of construction is. If you're a general contractor, put windows, put roofs, put interior renovations, just so you get a good idea about where your comfortability lies financially as far as your jobs. You also want to select projects of varying size, anywhere from 35,000 to 150,000. And then a couple other methods, you can evaluate a sampling of the anticipated items. And then you can also get subcontractors to evaluate their section of the CTC. The last statement is important, in my opinion, because the two players we talk about, the prime contractors and the subcontractors, as a subcontractor, if you have intimate knowledge of the CTC and you have intimate knowledge of how to build a proposal, that gives you a huge leg up when talking to a prime contractor, because essentially that's due diligence that they have to do. And that's something that's extra staffing and extra labor or extra, not work, but a task that they have to do on their end to build the proposal for each contract. If you're able to take some of that, if you're able to take that task away from them, then I think that gives a huge leg up to some contractors when talking with, or trying to develop relationships with prime contractors. So tips on being a successful job contractor. Obviously, you need to bid correctly. We've talked about a couple ways to try to figure out what your adjustment factor is. A couple more tips that you can use to try to bid correctly. You can anticipate the type of work the city expects to complete using job. Again, that goes back to if you're dealing with the Department of Transportation, then you want to get an idea about what job orders or what work that they do with the Department of Transportation. At the pre-bid meeting, there are 4 slides detailing the type of work used under each previous job contract. So at the pre-bid meeting, that will give you the chance to get an idea of what, let's just say you go to the pre-bid meeting for Department of Transportation. There'll be slides available for you where it details the type of work that they have, and then that will give you a chance to tailor your bid and also tailor your calculations based on what those jobs are. Analyze the prices in the CTC versus your costs. Again, we spoke about that, building those costs and building those proposals on your end and then translate it into the CTC. Run sample projects and determining factors required to adjust prices in the CTC to cover your direct costs, overhead and profit. And then in addition to bidding correctly, you need to staff correctly. So as a prime contractor, there's no pre-warning or pre-forewarning of how many jobs you're going to get, how much work you're going to get. So it's very important you staff correctly. So you have to make sure that you have the staff and have the capacity capable of taking on the volume of work that you can anticipate on getting. The bid factors and quality of staff affect whether or not a contractor can meet the performance standards. That's very important. This is a performance-based contract, so as a prime contractor and even as a subcontractor, you will be based on your performance in that vein. So if you don't perform under certain criteria, then that affects how much work they will be distributed to you throughout the rest of the contract. So that's an overview of the that's an overview of the JOC program. We can go through the JOC process. So once you're awarded the JOC contract, this is how the JOC process works with each job order. Number one being the joint scope meeting, the request for proposal, proposal development, proposal review, and then issuing the job order itself. So the JOC process. This lays out exactly how the JOC process works. First, the department, in this case, city department, develops a scope of work to create a JOC job order in eGordian. eGordian is a software that uses that manages the job order process for the owner, for us, and for the contract, for the department, for the client. After the scope of work after the department develops a scope of work, they notify the JOC contractor of the new project and forward the scope to them. Next, you finalize the outstanding issues at the joint scope meeting. So the department notifies the contractor, lets them know that I have this job order that needs to be done. They forward that scope to the contractor. They have a joint scope meeting and go over all the issues and concerns from each standpoint and try to nail down exactly, with all the feedback from everyone involved, try to nail down exactly what that job entails to the smallest detail. From that meeting, the contractor develops the scope of work. And then there's a request for a proposal. I'm sorry, after the joint scope meeting, the scope of work is developed by the owner. Then there's a request for a proposal from the owner to the contractor. The contractor then develops their proposal once the request is made by the owner. Once the contractor as the contractor develops a proposal, they select tasks and quantities from the CTC, and then they submit this proposal to the city for their review. The contractor's proposal is reviewed and approved, and then the contractor, after it's approved, they prepare the final package, and the final package includes all of those EEOC specifications we talked about, what percentage of the job will be WBE, MBE, the list of the subcontractors you're going to use, and any certification letters that are included in the package. And lastly, most importantly, the department issues a lump sum blanket release for the amount that's issued for that job order. Change orders and hidden conditions follow the same fixed price process. And then from DPS approval to issuance of a blanket release is approximately 30 to 45 days. Now, this is the value of the JOC process for the city. And those other procurement methods, design and build, term agreements, those procurement methods, they could take a lot longer than 30 to 45 days. So for city departments, this is where the value of using the JOC program lies in terms of the efficiency and how quickly it goes. So like we mentioned earlier, the JOC program is definitely performance-based. Each contractor is rated or judged on different things. The JOC contract includes measured performance standards. One would be the quality of your price proposals. So as a contractor, you're required to submit the price proposal for what the job is. There's a certain quality and certain detail that goes into that. If that's quality, then you could receive higher marks than lower. The timely price proposals, do you get everything to the department on time? Timely construction, rapid mobilization to start work, adherence to the agreed upon construction schedule, and timely completion of any punch list items. Obviously, as any contractor, that's important. Outside the JOC contract, that should probably be your goal anyway. And then quality construction, same situation. Good quality construction where projects are constructed according to the specifications and require minimal punch list items. Again, this is probably a goal for any contractor, just for them to make money in the simplest form. Achievement of MWBE goals. Again, these are spelled out in the contract, and these are, like we said before, these also need to be met, and these also need to be met and goals set forth in the contract document. So these are percentages that are already set in the document, and you have to meet those throughout the term of the contract. And then achievement of self-performance goals. Meet or exceed the self-performance goals set forth in the contract documents. That's basically just saying that as a contractor, you want to, there's certain goals that you have as a contractor that you want to meet during the contract, and you just want to make sure you hit those goals. Benefits and job order contracting. So the prime contractor's benefits with the JOC program. The JOC program can obviously be profitable. Profit is a function of volume, and volume is driven by performance. The reason why the JOC program is profitable for a prime contractor, it's a lot of us try to liken it to driving Uber. So if you, it's the volume base. So if you drive Uber, you're not going to see a lot of money on the first 2 or 3 rides. The value in Uber lies in maybe about the 4th week after about 27 rides. So it's tied to the volume of rides you have, and again, this is tied to the volume of jobs you have. You're not going to, make a lot of money on maybe the first, or you might, but you might not make a lot of money on the first 1 or 2 jobs that you have. But over the term of that contract, the volume of the work with the city can be pretty profitable for a contractor. The JOC program provides a steady flow of work, and another value for the prime contractor is you don't have to chase the next project. Again, that's not a method of having to go and chase and present and sell yourself to people. The work comes to you from the city. Another benefit is establishing a long-term relationship with the city. You want it to be a non-adversarial relationship, and you want to develop a partnership. That's obviously important for companies that want to, be around for a long term. Establish a relationship with the city can, be a huge benefit for 5, 10, 15 years. And then it's also professionally rewarding. Different types of projects can vary in scope. So as a contractor, if you mainly have been a majority of work, have done residential work, you might get jobs that go outside of that scope and give you the experience in other scopes and broaden your horizon, broaden your field, broaden your technical field as far as what you have experience with. And then you're also, another professionally rewarding aspect is you have the ability to provide input during the scope development. So going back to that JOC process, when you're meeting with the city as a contractor, at that meeting, you're able to bring your expertise to the table and meet with the department and say, they've already provided you with the scope, but you're able to give feedback on that scope, and that helps you in the long run, because the more impact, the more detail you can give to that scope, the better it helps you going forward, and it definitely helps you in completing the job. The subcontractors' benefits with the JOC program. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, no projects are identified at the time of bidding. So, as a prime contractor, they're not able to staff up to self-perform. So basically that means, as a prime contractor, you're not sure what job you're going to get at the onset of the contract. If you don't have the staff ready, because obviously you're already in motion as a company, if you don't have the staff ready, you're most likely going to have to sub that work out to a subcontractor. So that's where the value for a subcontractor comes in. The JOC program is basically a huge utilization for subcontractors to participate in the city projects. At its basic level, it provides opportunities for subcontractors to participate in city work. Another subcontractor benefit, it's a simplified procurement process for the city, allowing them to procure more work in a shorter period of time. That's a benefit for the city. And then it also provides multiple projects on multiple sites simultaneously. So more benefits for the subcontractors. As a subcontractor, we mentioned at the onset of the presentation, you want to try to establish relationships with the prime contractor because that is the lane for you to secure work. There are different methods for subcontractors to provide a quote to the prime contractor. You can provide a lump sum quote. You can provide a lump sum quote with a material breakdown. And then you can provide a lump sum quote with the material breakdown and CSI numbers from the CTC. Now, that goes back to that first tip I spoke about before. If you have 3 contractors and you're a prime contractor and all 3 submit each one of these 3 quotes, obviously the last one is going to hold a lot more benefit than for the prime contractor than the first one that just submits a lump sum quote, because it doesn't help the prime contractor in the long run. They still have more work to do to translate that quote into the CTC. But if you can take some of that work off of their hands, you know, it makes you a lot more valuable than somebody else submitting their quote. But with that said, subcontractors are not bound to the prices in the CTC. So when you're building that quote in the CTC, you're obviously going to have overhead and profit of your own. And that's not included in the CTC, so you'll have to build that into your quote as well. And then the prime contractor, in turn, have to build that into their quote to account for your overhead, or to account for as subcontractors' overhead and profit. As contracts are advertised, it may be worthwhile to obtain a copy of the CTC so you know what prime contractors are being paid for specific work tasks. This is very important. If a subcontractor is able to obtain a copy of the CTC, they have a leg up in saying if your field of work as a subcontractor is low voltage and you specialize in security cameras, and you see that CTC has a line item for security cameras at a certain level, that gives you some idea about where your quote needs to be at, because that automatically tells you what the prime contractor around and where they're going to have to pay themselves. So that gives you a little bit of information that you might be able to, subcontractor might be able to use to their advantage in submitting their quote. JOC is a performance-based contracting system that requires high-quality construction. Again, it's a performance-based system for both the contractor and subcontractor. So a couple key points. JOC is an established procurement system used by several types of public agencies nationwide, including the City of Chicago. JOC has benefits for all parties, the owner, the prime contractor, and subcontractors. It's a performance-based contracting system that determines the amount of work to be issued. And for subcontractors, it's important you be aware of the methods to submit a quote to the JOC prime contractor and be ready to perform at a high level. And then that middle illustration is what we looked at before, the actual process of after you awarded the contract. So getting involved, how do you get involved with the JOC program? You analyze the JOC programs in the Chicago area and any other areas you are willing to work. You identify those programs whose scope of work relates to your work, and then for prime contractors, you analyze the prices in the CTC and develop accurate adjustment factors at the time of bidding. And then for subcontractors, you establish a relationship with prime contractors. And these are the City of Chicago departments that have a JOC program. Department of Fleet and Facility Management, Department of Aviation, Department of Water Management, Department of Planning and Development, Department of Fleet and Facility Management Environment, Office of Emergency Management Communications, and Department of Transportation. They all have different disciplines, they all have different CTCs, and as we mentioned earlier, you want to definitely identify what department your particular work as a prime contractor, subcontractor matches up best with. Identification of other agencies' JOC programs is for informational purpose only. So on the right, you have other JOC programs that are used outside of the city departments, but these are other agencies where a lot of the things we talked about in this workshop might not apply. All discussions in this workshop pertain to the City of Chicago only. Procedures at other agencies identified on this slide may be different. To find advertisements for agencies listed on this slide, look on the agency's website. So I'll have some contacts at the end. I'll have some contacts at the end of this presentation. But those contacts are only applied to the City of Chicago departments. If you're interested in any of the JOC programs with these agencies, you will have to contact those agencies directly. Chicago Housing Authority, CTA, City Colleges of Chicago, and so forth, Postal Service. To find out about current advertisements, you can sign up for DPS Alerts on the procurement site. You can check the DPS website at www.citychicago.procurement. Under bid proposal information, you click the link under current bids and request for proposal. And then you can also check the newspaper, the Sun-Times. And you have a couple key contacts. The City of Chicago contracting process, you have Byron Whitaker, who's an assistant deputy procurement officer with the City of Chicago, who works with Mr. Bell, who spoke earlier. And you have our company, Gordian, who are responsible for the job order contracting process. I'm on the right, Kahari D. Andrews, and my manager, Michael Batchman. And then you have any questions? No, you can go. That was just me.
Just a general question as far as workforce. Are the workforce, do they have to be union or non-union, or is that a requirement?
Any worker in the city has to be union.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Owens.
And Ms. Amiga.